All right, let's dive into this one. This is a big one. Ronaldo at Barcelona. Just one season. What if he had stayed longer? What if, I mean, even that one season, the 96-97 season, was just,
legendary.
It was legendary. So was it the peak of his career? Or was it just like a glimpse, like what could have been? We've got some really interesting sources lined up talking about the incredible year.
Yeah, just diving deep into that season.
Deep dive, that's what we do here.
Yeah.
But get ready. Even if you think, like the Ronaldo story, you might be in for a few surprises.
Yeah, I think what's really fascinating here is we're not just looking at the stats, although they are pretty eye-popping. We're also trying to understand, okay, what made Ronaldo so special? Why was he different? And what was the football world like back then? Mid-90s.
Yeah.
And, even the question of why his time at Barcelona ended so abruptly.
Right. Okay, so let's set the stage. It's the mid-90s. Ronaldo, he's just 20 years old, joins Barcelona for a then world record fee, $19.5 million. Yeah, thinking back then, especially for this is Barcelona. They're a club steeped in history, right? And they're basically saying, this kid's the future. 8-year contract.
8-year contract.
Talk about a statement.
It is. And, you can imagine the expectations were just enormous. The pressure on this young man to be compared. We're talking legends here. Pele, Maradona, Cruyff, Van Basten, even, and, his manager, Bobby Robson at the time, famously said he'd never seen a player so skilled at 20.
Wow.
So it's everyone knew they were witnessing something special, but how special was it going to be?
Yeah, well, you sent over an article highlighting Ronaldo's stats for that season, the 96-97 season. And I've got to be honest, I was a little skeptical at first. 47 goals in 49 games across all competitions. Was that even possible back then?
It was extraordinary. It really was, even for that era. I think what's important to understand is he wasn't just scoring. He was dominating. He won the Pichichi Trophy. That's the award for La Liga's top scorer, with 34 goals in 37 games.
Okay, so for our listeners who, maybe aren't as familiar with the Spanish league,
right.
La Liga,
yeah,
that's Spain's top professional league, so kind of like their Premier League.
Exactly, yeah.
So, scoring 30-plus goals there,
it's massive, yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge. It puts him in a different category.
Yeah.
It's not just a flash in the pan.
And it wasn't just in Spain, right? He won the European Golden Shoe that year, too.
He did.
Which means, across all the major European leagues, he outscored everyone.
The Cotton's Goal King, yeah.
The Goal King, wow.
And the Golden Shoe really puts it into perspective. He was competing on a different level at such a young age. But, it wasn't just the quantity of goals. It was the way he scored them. He had this signature move, rounding the goalkeeper before putting the ball in the net.
Right, almost like a matador,
Yeah.
A little flair, a little showmanship, but so effective. And speaking of showmanship, we got to talk about that goal against Compostela, October 11th, 1996.
Ah, yes.
It's mentioned in a couple of your sources, and it sounds absolutely legendary.
That goal is it really encapsulates Ronaldo's brilliance. He picks up the ball in his own half.
Yeah.
Weaves through defenders. They're standing still, and then, boom, burst of speed. He's past the last man, rounds the keeper, finishes it off. It's not just a goal. It's like a work of art.
Yeah. And Bobby Robson's reaction on the sidelines, apparently he was jumping up and down like he couldn't believe it. It's special when a seasoned manager like Robson is that blown away.
And what's interesting? There's that iconic Nike ad that asks, imagine you ask God to be the best player in the world and he listened to you. They actually used footage from that Compostela goal.
Oh.
And I think that's kind of where Ronaldo's talent starts to transcend just the sport. It bleeds into popular culture, becomes a global phenomenon.
And it wasn't just the fans and the advertisers who were noticing, right?
Right.
Fellow players were just in awe of him. Oscar Garcia, who was Ronaldo's teammate at Barcelona at the time, said that he was all fiber and muscle, a perfect physical specimen, unstoppable.
Yeah, and this is where things get really intriguing. Jose Mourinho, who was working as an interpreter at Barcelona at the time, said that Ronaldo was the greatest player I have ever seen in my life.
Wow.
But what's fascinating is that Mourinho wasn't just praising talent. He was analyzing the impact that Ronaldo had on the game itself. He talked about how Ronaldo's speed forced defenses to actually change their tactics. It was almost like a glimpse of this high pressing style that's become so dominant in modern football.
Right.
So you can see those seeds being planted all the way back then.
Right. That's incredible. So we're already starting to see that Ronaldo wasn't just about individual brilliance. He was actually changing the game itself. But let's talk about some of those moments of individual brilliance, because there are some truly special ones in the sources you provided.
Yeah, absolutely. One that really stands out is the famous white handkerchief incident. So after Ronaldo scored a hat-trick against Valencia, the entire stadium erupted, not just in cheers, but in a sea of waving white handkerchiefs.
Okay, so this might be a dumb question, but what's the significance of the white handkerchiefs? Is that like a common thing in Spanish football?
It's not common at all. In fact, it's incredibly rare. The white handkerchief, in this context, is a symbol of surrender. It's almost like saying, we give up, you've completely won us over. And it's a gesture that's usually reserved for like bullfighters who have delivered an exceptional performance.
Wow, so they're comparing Ronaldo to a matador. I mean, that's a pretty high compliment, especially in a culture where, bullfighting is so revered.
Absolutely. It speaks volumes about the impact he had on the fans. He wasn't just a good player, he was captivating, almost mythical.
Right.
There's a quote from Sid Lowe, who's a well-respected football journalist. And he said, Ronaldo that season was unstoppable, ridiculously good.
And I mean, the accolades kept coming too, right? He became the youngest FIFA World Player of the Year at just 20. Here's the thing that's been bugging me. If he was so good, why did he leave Barcelona after just one season? They even extended his contract, like doubled his salary. It just seems so counterintuitive, especially with all the success he was having.
Well, there are a few theories floating around. Some suggest it was a contract dispute. Others point to, maybe the allure of a new challenge at Inter Milan. Some even argue that Barcelona mishandled the situation. They could have done more to keep him out.
Do you think there's any truth to that? Or is it just hindsight being 2020? It's easy to look back and be like, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. But in the moment, it's probably a lot more complicated.
You're absolutely right. The details of his departure are a bit murky, shrouded in the typical, transfer saga complexities that are common in football. But I think it's fair to say that Barcelona's decision-making at the time was likely influenced by a variety of factors, not just a simple contract dispute.
Great. And that leaves us with this massive what if, right? What if Ronaldo had stayed at Barcelona for those 8 years? Would he have reached even greater heights? Would he have become a true Barcelona legend, mentioned in the same breath as Cruyff or Messi?
It's a question that's impossible to answer definitively, but it's certainly fun to speculate. I mean, imagine Ronaldo continuing to develop under Bobby Robson's guidance, or perhaps later under Louis van Gaal. Imagine him forming a partnership with a young Xavi or Iniesta.
Right.
It's tantalizing.
We could be talking about a completely different era of dominance for Barcelona. But then again, maybe things would have turned out differently. Maybe he wouldn't have had the same impact at Barcelona in the long run.
It's true. That's the beauty of these what-if scenarios. They force us to consider these alternative timelines. Think about the ripple effects of even the smallest decisions.
Yeah. And it almost feels like we're talking about two Ronaldos, the one who, blazed through Barcelona for a single season, and the one who went on to have, an incredible but arguably different career elsewhere.
Right, and I think that's what makes this deep dive so compelling. It's not just a celebration of Ronaldo's talent. It's an exploration of potential, legacy, and, the unpredictable nature of a career in football.
And, we've focused a lot on goals, awards. But I think what really stood out to me from these sources is the way people talk about Ronaldo. It's almost like poetic, the descriptions of his style.
Oh, absolutely. Like that Sid Lowe quote calling him ridiculously good.
Yeah.
Or Oscar Garcia talking about him being, all fiber and muscle. It's clear he wasn't just winning. He was captivating audiences.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, was Ronaldo at Barcelona the peak of his powers, even if it was brief? Or did leaving actually allow him to achieve different kinds of greatness?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. What we can say for sure is that single season at Barcelona left an undeniable mark on the sport.
It's like a shooting star, you know? Brilliant flash of light, gone too soon. But you never forget seeing it.
Exactly. And sometimes those fleeting moments of brilliance are just as impactful as a long, sustained career. They spark conversations. They inspire future generations. They change the way we think about what's possible.
Yeah. So what does all this mean for you, the listener? I think it reminds us that greatness can take many forms. It's not always about longevity or, racking up the most trophies. Sometimes it's about those moments of pure magic, the ones that leave us breathless and wondering, what if?
And I think it also encourages us to appreciate those moments while they're happening. Because in sports, just like in life, nothing is guaranteed. Careers can be cut short. Potential can go unfulfilled. But the memories, the inspiration, those stay with us.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, listeners, it's time for you to dive in. What's your most memorable Ronaldo moment? Share your thoughts, your favorite goals, your own what-if scenarios. We're all ears. Let's keep this conversation going. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.